school committee meeting of December 3rd. You have before you an agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's update.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much.
Can you guys hear me?
I will start.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear you, Beth.
On the microphone?
Yeah, but the microphone's not for, the microphone's for TV. I think if you project, we'll hear you, Beth.
Okay, how about now?
That's perfect.
Good.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I will start with enrollment for the month of December. We are currently down by 2 students to 1,733 enrolled from 1,735 in November. The numbers specific to each school are quite simple. At NES, we have 1 fewer students. At IS, 1 more student. And CPS and NHS each are down by 1 student. So we're staying steady right now, which is usually the case around this time of year. In the new year, we may see a little bit of a spike in enrollment, as often happens, so we will keep you apprised of that. So the next thing is the 2025-26 school calendar. Wanted to share that draft with you. That's the second page in your packet. This is what we have shared with the Nantucket Teachers Association, and they have given us their stamp of approval. We are looking at each month's professional development days. You will see are in orange. So we have 3 days in August, the 26th, 27th, and 28th. We have an additional day in November on the 4th, which is Election Day, and our last professional development day will actually be in March this year, and that's on March 11th. According to our district administrative team, the idea was to have a day later in the year to be able to approach some professional development topics and really get a chance to reflect on what's happened in the prior part of the school year and plan for the year after. So that's a change in our calendar. We do have half days. I want to mention that there are 2 changes in half days from what was posted originally, and that is for the month of October. The original posting included the half day on the 15th of October, where we are moving that day to the 22nd of October, so that we do not have 2 days in that week that have that are compromised. We have the 13th as a holiday, so we wanted to move our half day away from the holiday week. So it will be October 22nd instead of October 15th, and the same thing in January. We will have our half day on January 14th instead of January 21st. So if all goes well and we have no snow days, we will be able to finish our year on June 18th in the hopes that will happen so that we do not have to go beyond the Juneteenth holiday on June 19th and then have to come back to school the week after. So hopefully that will work, and I'm happy to take any questions on the calendar before I move on.
Any questions? Vince?
Nope.
Okay, excellent. So the next piece is the annual report, the annual town report. Just wanted to share that. We have the draft version here of the Nantucket Public Schools portion of the annual town report, and it's always based on the previous school year. So this is from 23-24. This report is published each year and shared at the annual town meeting. All town departments add a section to share an overview of their previous year. So in our section, the schools provided summaries, and there are summaries also from myself, the superintendent, on the general state of the district at the beginning of the report, and each school and department, again, provides highlights for that year. Some of the important points to note include the announcement of our new 5-year district improvement strategy and our year 1 action plan. Also introduced in this report are our new leadership with the addition of a new curriculum director for humanities, a new director of English learner education, and a new facilities director at the beginning of the school year, as well as an interim director for technology starting in January after our previous tech director's retirement. Each school and department also shared a recap of the 23-24 school year. I won't go through each section. You have already read this document on your own. I don't want to take up that time, but I will certainly thank each of our principals, program directors, the executive director of the community school, and the facilities and tech directors for their thorough contributions to the report. And also to note, the second paragraph on page 2 of this report highlights the district's many community partners. And I want to be sure to mention that there will be an edit, because one very important partner, the Dreamland, somehow was not mentioned. So thankfully, this is a draft document, and I have not submitted it yet to the town. So this paragraph will be amended to include the Dreamland as one of the most successful partners in education that we have. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. So any questions before I move on to additional updates?
Questions? I don't see the hospital here.
Then there's another addition that I would be more than happy to add. So thank you very much. I'm glad this is a draft document. I will take note and make sure that the Nantucket Cottage Hospital is also included as a partner. Thank you very much.
Any other updates?
Okay, I'm going to continue on. I have a couple of additional updates. So we have entered the month of December, and 'tis the season for performances. The Dreamland invited seniors last month to attend a performance of The Great Gatsby earlier in November, and this month hosted our littlest learners to see a preview of A Year with Frog and Toad. So thank you again to the Dreamland and to Laura for our great collaboration to bring theater arts to our students. And speaking of theater, CPS's production of Finding Nemo Jr. went off without a hitch. It was a great success with lots of laughs and fun for audience members and students as well. Tomorrow, December 4th, will be the middle school holiday concert, and next Wednesday, December 11th, will be the high school holiday concert. The Accidentals and Naturals also will hold their annual dessert cabaret on December 16th. And I'm sure that if Nora or Cecilia are present, that one of them will provide more details on upcoming events that are happening in the district. And finally, a huge congratulations to our high school football team on bringing home the Island Cup after a terrific game at Fenway Park. Thank you also to the athletic department for putting in a lot of time to make that happen. I think it was a huge success, and we are very lucky to have had that really special opportunity. I am certainly waiting on some pictures from Dr. Richie Smith, Martha's Vineyard superintendent, who will be making good on his annual wager by wearing Whaler blue and white during his next school committee meeting. And that is all. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Beth, I hate to say it, but we should have the cup here. Front and center.
And for the school committee meeting?
I think for all school committee meetings, as a matter of fact.
I'll have a conversation with the athletic director and see if at least we can have it for one.
Well, I think that the team really distinguished themselves. Statistically, the season was not a success, but ultimately beating the Vineyard is the sweetest thing you can have. It's better than the Super Bowl, quite frankly. To see the somewhat cocky Vineyard students going home with bitter tears. But that's a whole other story. But I think we ought to have it here for the audience to be able to see it next time.
I would be happy to make sure that that happens. Thanks for the suggestion.
And I didn't go to high school here, but I'm a fan. Okay, presentations and discussions of issues of interest to the committee. English learner update.
see you all. I believe my slides are here. Let me see if I can scroll down to them. There we go. All right, so I have included for our first slide, again, our acronyms. We have so many acronyms and abbreviations under the umbrella of English learners. So EL references English learner. ELL is English language learner, used basically interchangeably. MLL is multilingual language learner, which can include students who are from English-speaking households who are taking Spanish or another foreign language. LEP is limited English proficient, often used in the federal regulations and descriptions, but often kind of seen as a deficit view, but still it's in play. FEL, F-E-L, is former English language learner. FLNE is first language not English, which is important for many reasons in our district. And SLIFE, S-L-I-F-E, is students with limited or interrupted formal education. And then ELSWD is English learner, students with disabilities, or student with disabilities. So again, those are acronyms and abbreviations that you'll see referenced, but please ask if it comes up and you need the reminder. So I'm the director. I have 2 ESPs in my department. Gabby Burns is in the central office, and Catherine Delgado is the district translator. We have 5 full-time ESL teachers at NES, 4 full-time ESL teachers at NIS, 2 full-time ESL teachers at CPS, and 3 full-time teachers at NHS. And we have the same teachers that we had last year. We didn't have any changes in our staffing, which was wonderful for many reasons, for the continuity. The student population this year, we have, I'm not sure, this fluctuates, and I know Dr. Hallett just gave you the update, so this number, I did this before vacation week. So at the time I did this, Aspen listed 1,794 active students, and of those, 386 are English learners or limited English proficient. And FLNE, first language not English, we have 916 students, or 51% of our student body. And the translation and interpretation requested stands at 560 families who have requested that, and at 31% of the student body. One piece to note, some families request translation, some families request interpretation, some families may request both, interpretation being oral, translation being written. So we have, here's just a graph for our English learners and our first language not English students. The district total there, and limited English proficient, and then the FLNE is the third bar over, and interpretation needed. This is important to note because our limited English proficient students, or our current active Ls, are students who receive English language services. First language not English, those students do not receive English language services necessarily, but it's important to note because they're crossing 2 linguistic and cultural boundaries daily when they go home. And so sometimes those families are also included in the families who've requested interpretation, even though their students might not be active English learners. So it's just something to be aware of. Translation services, we have, again, Catherine Delgado is our district translator for Spanish, and Gabby Burns is the ESP in my office who does translation in Portuguese. She's from Brazil, but she is not, it's a small part of her job. She's got a lot of other job duties. She is not a district translator. And then we have a subscription translation service for other languages, or overflow, as we are going to experience this week when we have parent-teacher conferences. So that service is called Linguistica, and it's a dial-in service where you dial in and you have an audio and someone translates. Hopefully we're going to use computers so that they're on the table, and it'll hopefully be a little bit better than using just the telephones. So here's our students as compared to the state. So first language not English, we have 49% in our district, and the state is 26%. English language learners, we're at 19%, whereas the state is 13.1. Low income, students with disabilities, and high needs are also listed on this graph, at our percentage versus the state. So our low income is only 34%, whereas the state is 42%, and the students with disabilities, 18.4%, where the state is at 20%. And here's a graph of the English learners by school. NES is, interestingly, the bookends, NES and NHS have the most English learners. NES, because we have students who come into kindergarten, we have a lot of English learners in kindergarten because they're coming from their homes where they have been operating in their home language, and they're coming to school, and they are often it's sometimes also quieter or shyer. It's their first experience with schooling. So when we give them the assessment for English language proficiency, they sometimes are picked up pretty easily in that early elementary time. And then at the high school, we get a lot of students coming in from immigrants coming in to our schools. So that's why those are a little bit higher. NIS a little bit lower, CPS a little bit lower. Students, by the time they get into NIS, many students will exit the program, and it's all based on a proficiency level, which is taken from the access score that is a state mandated progress monitoring tool that's given once a year in January and February. And based on those scores, students are required to exit when they reach a certain criteria, a certain score in literacy and in overall composite. So generally, we exit students in NIS or CPS. So we have a growing number of English learners with disabilities, which is interesting and presents challenges of its own as well. Total number of students on IEPs in the district is 388, and according to Aspen, and the total number of Ls is 84, so that's 22%. And I think in some ways we do see that number growing. And it can present challenges just in terms of the needs, individual needs of those students, and the capacity to service them, depending on what their IEP is asking and what the EL mandate is. They're two completely separate mandates. So a student who is both English learner and found with a specific learning disability or some type of learning disability, they are required to have services from both mandates. One doesn't trump the other, which can be a challenge. Home languages for our English learners and our former English learners are the FELS. We have our largest minority language continues to be Spanish. Portuguese is growing. We're seeing increasing numbers of Brazilian students in the district. And then the other color bands are a variety of language groups, Bulgarian, Lithuanian, Thai, Nepali. We have a couple of students who speak Mayan languages. It's a real mix, Russian. Just a real mix of languages there. This is a graph that shows our English language proficiency levels. So as I said, when students come into our schools, they are assessed for English language proficiency. They're given a screener, and then each year they take the access test. And they're tested in the 4 domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And the proficiency levels go from 1 to 6. 6 would be native speaker, and a 1 would be a complete beginner. So we're getting a lot of students, as I said, a lot of the students we get coming into high school are coming in at a level 1. And some of our kindergartners also come in at a level 1. It's very individual how quickly people learn language and acquire it. They are required to exit services when they reach a 4.2 overall level and a 3.9 in literacy. So if you can imagine, that's kind of like a high intermediate or low advanced. They're not exiting at native speaker proficiency, which is impactful for our gen ed teachers and important for them to maintain professional development and receive professional development in working with English learners, because they still need to develop their language skills in all of their classes. Let's see. Then the proficiency level of our current English learners, we have 120 at the entering level 1 stage, 74 emerging, 111 developing, 173 expanding, and 61 bridging, and 13 reaching. As I said, they're required to be exited when they reach that level 4 expanding, and it's a 4.2. So the majority of our students in active services are at the levels 1, 2, and 3. And the developing level and the expanding level is where kids will plateau in some ways. It's it's just a real push to get to that native speaker level, so to speak. And also, it's very important to remember and to note that we're talking about academic language. And none of us are wired for academic language. All students, monolingual students, bilingual students, trilingual students, all come to school to learn academic language. So when we're looking at these proficiency exams, we're looking at their grammatical the complexity and their ability to use sort of elevated vocabulary, more abstraction, metaphors, things like that. It's really is what academic language is. So it's a step above just a social interaction level of language proficiency.
But why do they sort of age out at 4.2?
Well, that's a great question. So the Department of Education revised their guidelines just in March of this year, 2024, and they determined that when a student reaches a 4.2, they must exit. Prior to this revision, it was up to the districts if they wanted to keep them in, and some districts in Massachusetts kept students in services until they reached a level 5. But the state has said they have to exit. I think that's in response to a number of things. I think it's real individual how students progress. I think in districts like ours, we have a small district which is both a blessing and a curse in ways, in that students will learn language better the more integrated they are. And if they're kept in English language services, we find that we have these cohorts going through together, and they're most comfortable speaking Spanish together because we have this majority-minority language happening. So that all adds up to making it just a little bit more complex. So, and I think the growing numbers too as well is probably behind the state's thinking. But at any rate, they just recently changed their guidance on that.
Question on that.
Yes.
When you say the growing numbers, is that just so that they can provide it more expensively? And then once you top out at 4.2, that's it? But is there any option to continue?
With this revised guidance, they're saying there's no option. It is not up to professional judgment. You need to exit them. And they want them integrated in. A part of it is also to create more of an integration instead of some separate class experiences and things. So I think it's to get them more integrated. It's a tricky proposition because a 4.2 is not a 6.0, and again, that's language proficiency, and where all of our students, including our monolingual American students, are coming to school to learn academic language. So to that end, they're all needing the same lift with the language for academia, but we are talking proficiency, and it's different, yeah. So yeah. I mean, I can't really speak to why all the reasons the state might have done that, but I can speculate.
It sort of feels like we're setting these kids up for failure.
Well, I hope we aren't.
If I may, please. I'd imagine, for example, I'm a 9th grader. This is my first time in an English-speaking country, and I speak Spanish or Portuguese. My family, that's our home language as
Yeah.
well. They don't speak English either.
Yeah.
And I'm in a classroom learning English. I hit a 4.2, if I'm lucky, in 10th grade. And I'm asked to leave the program and put in a classroom with kids who have been speaking English since birth. And do they have someone in the classroom that's assisting them at this point? I'm assuming
No.
Okay. They're,
I mean, so I'm saying no pretty quickly because short answer is no.
Yeah.
The longer answer is I think a lot of program models are moving towards co-teaching. So you would have a language specialist or an ESL teacher in that classroom with the content teacher to look at the language that is being placed in front of the students and to help the teacher understand how to develop that and expand on that and to be cognizant of the language they expect to get in return. So it is forcing the hand of the content teachers to really look more closely at the language of their content area and of what the students are producing. That's where I think part of our growth needs to be, because in some ways it's advantageous, because if you think about it, if you go to France and you really want to learn French, the best way you're going to get it is by immersion. So that is putting yourself in French contexts, right? Not sort of gingerly going in and coming out. And keeping kids in an ESL classroom with other students who are learning language develops their language, but at the same time, what we're experiencing here in this district a lot is that because we have a majority minority Spanish population in our district, the kids are socializing in Spanish at the lunchroom and everywhere else, and it's hard to develop that. They go home and they're in Spanish, but they come here and they're also in Spanish. So in some ways, in our experience, in our district, it's almost probably going to be advantageous to get them more integrated and dispersed. But it does put the onus on the content teachers to be looking at that language development piece. And I think, to that end, we'll be investing in some PD for our teachers so that they become more comfortable and more, and grow in their expertise in working with multicultural, multilingual students in their classrooms. Yeah, it presents challenges. There's no question it presents challenges. But I think across the board in many districts now, the program model is moving more towards co-teaching and or even dual language if you have that capacity. But there's a lot of pieces to that. It's not a quick fix or a quick change. So we have proficiency levels by our schools. So we have NES and NIS here. And again, this is just another chart to sort of help you conceptualize the language levels. And again, you'll see at NIS, we got a lot of developing in the level 3 range, and NES, a lot of entering, which is completely predictable because we get a lot of the kindergartners coming in at the level 1, and they're all developing language along with their monolingual peers too. So, but that's where we see a lot of level 1s. And then they develop pretty nicely. In NIS, they get ready to exit. And then CPS, a similar thing, a lot of level 3s. And then also at NHS. But you'll see at the high school, we also have a lot more entering than, a considerable number more than, looks like almost double than CPS, right? But we're getting a lot of teenagers coming with beginning level skills. So our delivery service here, so our program model here at Nantucket Public Schools is SEI, which is Sheltered English Immersion, and it is that idea of immersing kids in the language. So they get pull-out ESL services, and for the most part, some push in the elementary, but at the middle school and the high school, it's all ESL classes that are graded. And the newcomer ranges, this year I separated out entering and newcomers. I feel like we have some students who are at the entering range, so they're in the level 1 range, but they've been here a year and haven't progressed. And then we have new kids coming in who are completely new from their countries, and it's a little bit of a different need. So a student who's just come and they're a level 1 has a different need than a student who's been here for 1 year and is still a level 1. So we separated those out a little bit, and the newcomers get from levels, for example, levels 1 to 1.9 get 2 blocks of ESL per day, and the entering students who are like 1.8 to 2.5 get 2 blocks per day. Emerging students also get 2 blocks per day, and then the developing should be down to 1 block per day. They should also be taking, like here at the high school, also be taking ELA classes at middle school and high school. So like in the developing range, they would have 1 block of ESL and then 1 block of ELA as well. And it's works a bit differently at the elementaries because it's kind of different, just the makeup of those classes. But that's basically the breakdown there in terms of how much time on ESL we're looking at.
But if you're pulling them out of high school classes, for example, what are they missing?
So we're not pulling them out. Middle school and high school are a graded class, so that's just ESL as a class on their schedule. So they're not missing anything. That's a class in their schedule. So for example, a newcomer student who comes might have ESL and math and science, and we have at the middle school and at the high school, middle school is very well established with their newcomer newcomer math and science class, and they've added a civics class this year for our beginning students. The high school, we're working on that co-teaching model for the math and the science, so that the students who first come in, they'll have ESL, then they'll have that math and science class that is for students at a level 1 proficiency level, co-taught with an ESL teacher and a content teacher, and then whatever classes they need towards graduation. And sometimes they might have something that's more hands-on, like an art class or an elective, because it helps them to develop their language in a way that's hands-on. So the highlights, here's last year. Last year was my first year here. This is my second year. So last year, we got some of our ESL teachers in Orton Gillingham training for literacy. And I feel passionate that we need to develop the literacy skills for our English learners, and we need to be very well trained. So some of our elementary, two elementary teachers at NIS participated in it, and 3 teachers here at the high school participated in Orton Gillingham training for ESL teachers. And then CPS has the newcomer classes, and NHS for science and math. And we're still working on those. As I said, at CPS, they're off and running with that. If there's been a stability of the assignment of who's doing that, so those teachers are growing in their relationship. And I think there's been a little more volatility here at the high school as to who's teaching those classes and how that team is going to work. But we're working on that. MLPAC, which is our Multilingual Learner Parent Advisory Council. This is a requirement. So if Department of Education says if you have more than 100 English learners in your district, you must have a Parent Advisory Council. And so we have that going, and Lauren Gabriel's going to present on that in a few minutes. She's our teacher coordinator for it, and our current new president is here as well. And then community of practice is something last year for the students that we get into the district who come into middle school or high school, particularly high school, who are SLIFE, who are students with limited or interrupted formal education. Massachusetts has a community of practice, which is simply a gathering of districts who come together, district leaders and teachers who come together and talk about what's working, what's not working, how are you scheduling it, how are you meeting the needs of these students. SLIFE students, a student with limited or interrupted formal education, is defined as a student who's 2 grade levels below in literacy and math. And we are seeing those students. As part of DESE's revised guidance in March, they also have required us to screen and identify them. So before that, they were saying, we have students who are coming in who are grade levels below. What are we going to do about it? You can identify them or not. So now the guidance is you must give them a screening and you must identify them. So this year we've screened, I think, 2 or 3 students here at the high school who have been found to be SLIFE. And the screening tools are very gray. There's, DESE's provided a little bit of guidance, so that the guidance is you need to screen and identify them, but they don't really give you a solid tool or way. I think it's a situation of building the plane while it's going down the runway, right? So we're just seeing an increase in this, and a question of how to address the need, right? So it's a challenge, and it's something we're working on that is continuing. So it's and something to be aware of. We brought in the Seal of Biliteracy last spring. We had 8 students who earned the Seal of Biliteracy. It was very exciting. And the Seal of Biliteracy is a seal that is affixed to a student's diploma that is a validation that they are biliterate, not just bilingual, but biliterate in 2 or 3 languages, could be 3. But we've had 8 students who earned it in, we had Portuguese and Spanish, and this year I have 26 students who've signed up so far, and a handful of them have already tested, and I'm waiting for their scores to come back. So moving forward, this is a really great opportunity. It's also great for any of our English-speaking students who've taken enough years of Spanish or have another foreign language somehow that they've learned, and they are also welcome to do this. I have 1 student who tested in Russian this year, and so students might have home languages that are other than what we're offering here. So it's a very exciting opportunity that is going to continue, and I'm hoping that we will test in the fall and in the spring. Last year we started this off in the spring, so it was kind of chasing the calendar, racing the calendar. But this year, so I've started a little bit earlier, so that's exciting. And then for this year, we have, 3 of the teachers who did the Orton Gillingham training are completing their practicums. CPS added their newcomer civics this year. We changed the name of the MLPAC to the LPAC because MLPAC is Multilingual Parent Advisory Council, and I got clarification from Desi that, in fact, the Parent Advisory Council is really for English learners and parents of students who are or were English learners. So again, that idea of that acronym, that MLL, can include monolingual students who are now learning another language. The Parent Advisory Council is not for that. The Parent Advisory Council is really for our English learners who are spanning cultures and languages. So, the suggestion from Desi was, why don't you change the name back to avoid the confusion? So I've suggested that. The new guidance for SLIFE is out, that we are identifying SLIFE students, and we're working to understand how to best meet those needs and help those teachers, help the content teachers meet the needs. And we have 8 students in 2023-24 for the Seal by Literacy, and 26 actually who've signed up for testing this year. Our department also brought in a program, a software program called Flashlight 360 for progress monitoring, and the intention is that up until now, up until this year, we have been making placement decisions for our English learners based on access tests, which happens in January or February. So it's a snapshot, one time a year. And so we brought in a new program called Flashlight 360 that is going to be used for progress monitoring for speaking and writing skills, so that we can be a little bit more fluid in the student placement. We can move them into the classes they need to be in if we see that mid-year they're progressing, or they're ready for the next step. So I'm hoping that we will see, we'll have some better and more frequent monitoring of students' language growth and proficiency, rather than just one time a year. And we have some really great SEI training happening here at the high school. I've brought in consultants from a company called Confianza, and they are doing some sheltered English instruction training with the teachers. They kicked it off in October with a half-day presentation, and now they're going to work with content area teams. So starting tomorrow, actually, they'll be back. And I added one slide because I realized after I did this, and I'm sorry I don't have it here because I added it after it was printed, but if you want to take one, I realized that I didn't tell you one of the most front burner things in the EL department right now is the DESE TFM review. So the Department of Education they conduct program reviews every 4 years, and it's the TFM is Tiered Focus Monitoring Review. And so they come into the district and they say, we're going to review your program and see how you're doing, and we're going to sort of give you a rating and tell you, what you need to improve and what's going well and what needs improvement. So it begins with a self-assessment, which I've been working on this fall. And it's actually started, they gave us this information at the end of last year, so we knew about it into the summer, and I've been working on it this fall, and it's culminating tomorrow. And then they will come in. They're not actually going to visit the island. They do actually physically go to some districts, but they're not coming to Nantucket. They're going to virtually visit us in March, and that will begin on March 10th of next year. And that's where they come in, they'll interview me, and they'll interview administrators and teachers and students and parents. They conduct a lot of interviews, and they make phone calls, and they do a file review as well to make sure that we're keeping documents as we should. Basically what they're looking at are the bullet points there: the program model, the services, are we servicing our students adequately, parent and community engagement, super important for DESE, that we are engaging the families, and you'll hear when Lauren presents on the LPAC, it's an ongoing what do I want to say? It's an ongoing challenge to engage our families because of many reasons. Like, it can be work related, it can be language related, it can be a lot of things. Culturally, can be a huge difference between the placement of school in a person's life, right? Into various cultures. So trying to help them, let us help them is an ongoing challenge in some ways. So we keep trying to think of ways to bring them in. And DESE has, as this is a requirement, as everything, they have guidance around it. So there's real specific kind of rules. It's not a social event, it's a meeting. It's not this, it's that. So it's tricky to try to, engage families and get them in a sort of more, in some kind of a sustaining way. So we're continuing with that. They look at our professional development. Are we preparing our teachers to work with English language learners? And they look at our, all of this is all looking at the English learner growth and achievement. So this program review is happening now. They will come in March. They'll give us their findings after they do all of their interviews and they're looking around. And then we have generally what I understand will happen next is, this is my first time to go through this, but is that then they will find things that need to be fixed and we will have to reply and tell them exactly what we're going to do and proof and evidence that we're going to do this and what is our timeline and things like that. So it tends to be the program review tends to be like a two-year ordeal, or two-year plus ordeal, depending on what they find. So that's our program update. Do you have any questions?
I do. I imagine that the most successful student is the one that starts in pre-K and then goes through. So I'm sure the biggest challenge are those older students.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's a reluctance on of the student to not want to engage? Does that seem to be kind of a...
So first of all, I want to say it's real individual, right? I mean, you know, if you have children or the children in your life, how children come to language, it's very individual. You can have the same, kids in the same family, and some are just engage and get it better. Some are better writers, some are better this. I don't find it's a reluctance. It's interesting you say that because the high school students who come here are near and dear to my heart because they have a limited time offer to learn English, right? I feel like we have to do right by these kids because we have them for so much less time than we have our kids who enter kindergarten. I have had, in my experience in my career, I have had students come in as complete beginners, Arabic background, Haitian Creole background, Spanish background, come in as complete beginners in junior year and graduate on time and go off to college. I have a former student now who's at WPI in architecture getting ready to graduate, and he came in as a complete beginner in his junior year. But you can capture them. And again, it's all very individual. I think one thing, again, I'm going to underscore this idea. One challenge I see here in our district, because we have this majority minority language, the students at that age level, especially in high school, middle school and high school, they start to be more self-conscious. They don't want to make mistakes in front of their friends. So it can be harder if you have a class of all Spanish speakers to get them to, really pull out the English because they don't want to sound silly to a great extent. But I think my experience here, the students here in Nantucket Public Schools are fabulous. They're very receptive, they're gentle, they want it. I believe they want it. Like when I start to engage with them, when I go into classes, I've covered some classes here at the high school, they're shy. They don't want to sound funny. But when you start to really engage them, you can just see they want it. They want to learn. They're here. They come to school every day. They're here, right? I mean, it speaks volumes. So I think we need to do our best to meet their needs.
And I just have one additional question, sort of around that. What sorts of professional development are the teachers engaging in around this?
So again, at the high school here, I've brought in this company, Confianza, for sheltered English instruction. And they were very well received in October, and they're going to work with the grade level teams. So for example, tomorrow they're going to work with the special ed team, and the math team and the science team. They're going to have 4 teams, and I'm blanking on what the 4th one is. And then they'll come back in February and work with the remaining teams. And so this is the beginning. I want it to grow from here. Last year I did some SCI work at NIS that I think was pretty well received, but I really think we need to get, it needs to move more in a direction of, it needs to be more individualized or with grade level teams in a sense, because everybody's at a different place with their understanding, with their comfort level, with their familiarity with all of this, and so it's very hard to just, it's not something you can just, it's not easy to deliver in a large group and then they walk back to the classroom and they've got it. It really needs to be a little bit more working with smaller teams or individual teachers and a little bit more of a coaching model in a sense. But it's not rocket science. They'll get it. It's more about familiarity and comfort, and understanding how to make it dovetail with their existing practice as teachers, right? Because we've got some fabulous teachers in this district. I find maybe they're not all comfortable working with English language learners because they just don't feel that familiar with it. But it's not such a far stretch, right? So I think we can definitely get there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have no questions. I have a few questions.
Okay.
How many languages are spoken in the district, do you know?
Oh, so we usually say I usually say between 11 and 14 or so, because sometimes it's hard to get a handle on it. But yeah.
And then, just curious, what kind of support you need to expand on the program's success? What can we as a school committee do to help support you in your work?
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for that question. I think awareness that we have this population and that they bring such a richness to our school. Yeah. Just talking it up. Yeah.
With the students coming in later with interrupted education,
Yeah.
they're probably not going to graduate.
Students are resilient. Kids are resilient.
Okay. It's been my impression that if you come in and you're a sophomore, you don't speak English, and you've finished at the 4th grade, it's going to be a little tough.
Yeah. It is tough. It can be tough. We have a student who came into the high school who missed all of middle school recently. That's fascinating, isn't it? But if you're a reader and you're going to do the work, I think kids are resilient. I think they can make great gains.
Do we interact with the GED program?
Not, my department does not, as of now, interact with the GED. No, not as of now. That's a great question, and I would want, that's a super great question, but I would be careful. I would want to, I wouldn't want the messaging to be deficit, that you're not going to get there, so here's an I think having that information is important, but I would want to lift students up to graduate, because I have seen it. I really have seen it over the course of my career, more than a few times. Kids are resilient. They have to do the work. They have to have skin in the game, and they have to do the work. It's not on the teacher to hand them. But to coach them and to inspire them and to motivate them. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may,
Yes.
Yes.
through the chair, the last question about the GED, I believe, and I don't know if Alicia Gatzade is in the audience, but I believe that we do have GED opportunity in Spanish. That wouldn't necessarily involve the L department, but it is an assistive piece around gaining the GED. I can certainly find that out and report on it in our next meeting if you'd like.
Yes, I think that would be helpful, because I just feel that we can want it as much, but time runs out.
Right. I agree with you on that. The challenge is that what the English Learner Department does and is expected to do is to move our English learners forward to a point where they are able to graduate successfully in using and being successful with English. However, the GED has a little bit of a different expectation. So certainly we don't want to move people away who are willing to do the work and really move forward with English proficiency, and have that be just an alternative. But it is something that we can certainly look into.
Okay. Thank you very much, Beth.
Sure.
We'll move on to the English Learner Parent Advisory Council. Lauren, you're up.
Hi, I'm Lauren Gabriel, and I'm here with the LPAC president, Rosa Guevara, but she's only been our active president for one meeting, so I'm just going to take it by myself here. Also, since I'm an elementary school English language teacher, this is going to be a bonanza of color. You can't tell me to do a slideshow and think I'm going to keep it boring. So I'm sorry, this is just who I am. Anyway, the English Language Parent Advisory, we have a mission to ensure English learners receive the academic, linguistic, and social and emotional supports they need to be successful in school and in life while maintaining their cultural and linguistic identities. And this is really important to me and Rosa specifically, since we each have two bilingual children. But I think sometimes people don't understand that it's not always the goal just to get these kids to learn English. We still want them to really respect and honor their cultural and linguistic identities while they're learning English, which can be kind of a fine line to walk. So that being our vision, our mission is to foster strong partnerships between schools and families by providing opportunities for engagement rooted in mutual respect and trust. And so we really believe, along with the state of Massachusetts, that that having an LPAC is one of the biggest steps, or a big step that we can take towards achieving our goal. So last year at the MLPAC, we had some highlights or successes. We orchestrated a decommissioned computer giveaway. That was with the understanding that not all of our families, and I'll always refer to them as our families since I'm the teacher, but we get so close for the relationship as well. Not everybody has a device at home to be doing things like homework. I mean, whether or not they're in pre-K or they're seniors. And that already puts them at a disadvantage. And so we collaborated with the tech department to find computers that were already going to be recycled or donated elsewhere. And we were able to wipe them clean and give them away for families to take home and use, with the understanding that they're no longer connected to MPS. So the same safeguards aren't on them as the kids' computers that they have here, but that's because we really wanted to give the entire family access to a computer. That was really popular, and it really helped our attendance. That was the first few meetings last year we had that, and then throughout the year a couple people would come to us and we were able to arrange those computers as needed. Oops, I'm still here. Also, I had a really long slideshow about the importance of attendance, because one challenge we really face as a group is the attendance with L students is really poor. And so the former president and I just thought it's very important to share with the families the reality of attendance. Like after they're gone for, I think it's 20% of the year or 10% of the year, they're I think it's 18 days. After 18 absences, so 10%, they are at a risk, and a letter will be sent home. And although we don't encourage, students to be held back, that's not what we want at all. But at a certain point, you have to consider how much school did they miss, and are they going to be ready for that next school year? So I was pleased to find that many parents actually were engaging with me in that slideshow and asking questions. And so I think, and we were able to point out some things that they might not consider, such as it's embarrassing for the students to come back and, be told that they're behind their classmates or have extra work to have to catch up with. And it can get to be too much for those older students when the assignments are a lot more time consuming. We were also able to assist parents in different areas, like setting up Aspen or accessing it in the first place, signing up for the Boys and Girls Club, and getting scholarships to the Boys and Girls Club as well. We had a few nights where parents could bring in their computers, and tech was there, and we also had nights when I've just signed up my own son to the Boys and Girls Club so much that I was able to help get them a login so they can access the parent portal. And getting those scholarships is also important. Sometimes parents are hesitant to apply for the scholarships because they maybe don't have all the tax documentation in line. But the Boys and Girls Club is one of our best partners in this community. And in my experience with them, they've never turned our students away. So if we can connect the two, it's beneficial for both. We also had presentations from Maura Wendelkin, who is the education coordinator of the NHA. She came in and talked to us about all the work they do and the programs available for the kids. And we've had a representative from the Boys and Girls Club come in too. They launched a new English language learning program at the club that children are welcome to do. I think they had 15 spots available at the time because they were piloting the program. I'm not sure, I haven't followed up with them to find out how successful it's been, but it's really nice that they are even continuing education at the club for our English language learners, just like they do the homework club and all the other things. So they came and were able to share that information with the parents. And I will say that the most questions that night were about how the parents themselves could get the English language learning classes. And then I would say one of our biggest highlights or our most important discussions of last year was with Dr. Hallett herself, and I have more about that on the next slide.
Can I ask a question?
So,
Before we move on, can I ask a question?
absolutely.
For the decommissioned computer giveaway, how many computers did you give away? And did you meet the needs? Were there more computers that were needed than given away?
Well, on the first night we ran out, but we did get more. I can't remember how many we had. Dozens. And then we've been talking to tech this year as well, and we're going to get, I think we have some more that are available. And Barbara and I were talking about how to put that out there. I'm not sure exactly how many are available yet, but these are the things that we have to keep going, because honestly, if you don't have the computer at home, it makes doing your homework pretty hard.
Agreed. I'm just trying to see if there's still a shortage.
I think there's always going to be a shortage. I mean, most of the students I talk to, if you ask them if they have a computer at home, they say, my students will say no. We have computers that we'll give to our ESL students as needed that are still connected to the school. So if they're like searching up something inappropriate, it will still ping the offices that need to know, and the student will be called in for like a chat, because especially my students are so young. We don't want to give them just a free range of the internet at that age. But yeah, as far as I know, it's always a need. So our meeting with Beth, it's about in mid-March 2024, we suffered the sudden loss of a student, and that student happened to be Latino. And about a year and 3 months prior to that, we had also experienced a sudden loss of a student, the death of a student. But the response to the previous sudden loss was different. And it's worth noting that the first boy who passed away was Caucasian, while the second boy was Latino. So the response to the first death, the school was closed the next day. But it was the circumstances, I don't know all the information around Dr. Hallett's decision making, but that in the moment, that's what happened. And then Dr. Hallett discovered that really wasn't in the best interest of the students to have the school closed, because some kids didn't know that student, some kids didn't have anywhere to go. She realized that now, but hindsight is 20/20. So she did inform us that was the reason the school stayed open with the Latino student, is that she was trying to improve the response to this sudden loss of life in our community. But at the same time, there was still speculation of racism, like surrounding the decision to keep the school open instead of closing the school. And also there was other activities or events that had to do with celebrating the life of that student, the first student, the Caucasian one, that didn't happen with a Latino student. And so it just got everybody a little bit on edge, wondering if it was if any part of those decisions were based on race. And then while that was happening, there's ongoing incidents of racism in our school and our community that further perpetuated all the speculation. For example, some kids were on social media outside of school were sharing images of kids who had written like racist slurs on words, or at least one, and they were sharing those images in school. So even though the photo wasn't taken out of school, it was in the situation has entered our school buildings, and the response wasn't amazing from the people in the high school. So the students were already on edge about a couple racist incidents that had been going on, like in and around school. And so that when the sudden loss happened in March, it was kind of like, see what we mean? And so talking to the MLPAC, we realized that it was, or the LPAC, it was a really important that we were able to speak with Dr. Hallett. And we hope to develop a more comprehensive protocol to address the sudden or unexpected loss of life in our community. So we, as the LPAC, drafted a letter to have a meeting with Dr. Hallett, and then which she responded to immediately and asked to attend our next meeting. So once we got to speak with Dr. Hallett, she had told us that she was already working on developing a protocol. I believe she already had a little committee going on to work on that, because she realizes it's in the moment you really need to have like some consistency so everybody knows what to do in these like confusing times. She came to our meeting. It was really well attended. We had parents there and we had some students as well. The LPAC responded favorably to the draft for the protocol, and then they were also happy that Dr. Hallett was able to stay with us and speak with the parents and those students that had attended, to have an open discussion about racism and inequities or anything else that was kind of like fostering up inside people during this like kind of heated time. So that was, I feel like, really successful for the LPAC last year. We felt it was important that she asked us to view the draft with her so that we knew that we had a voice in this. So that brings us to right now. New year, new president, familiar challenges. We are always struggling to maintain attendance for the LPAC. Really, all the way back from when my son entered kindergarten and I went to the meetings as a parent, and it's just really hard. We try everything. We jump through a lot of hoops. We'll try to offer different games and activities for the kids, but it's still difficult to get people to, if they are home from work, leave their homes again and come back out. We did change the name back to LPAC to reflect Desi's guidance. We also reduced the number of meetings per year. Last year, I think we had a total of 7 meetings, and now, after reading Desi, they suggested 4 meetings a year, and we were thinking that might help our parents who are, often so busy, and that if they had less meetings to go to, that maybe they would prioritize them more instead of thinking like, I'll just go next month. And then we also revamped the flyers to include information about the group, a map, so everybody's given the location, and the intended topics of discussion. And I'm also in an an LPAC WhatsApp group, so parents are asked what, parents who sometimes don't even come, we're asking everybody what they would like to talk at this meeting, because our focus is to really help empower the parents of our students and let them know that they have a voice and they have a say in their children's education. That's all from the LPAC, and we thank you for having us tonight.
Questions?
Any questions?
Just one. When it comes to the reduced number of meetings, I understand that, but just to make sure you keep engagement up, could there be something like an open house every once in a while, once a year, just so that there's a slightly more informal way of getting attendance and getting interest?
Yeah, I guess. You mean more like open house just for L families to come, but doing something not meeting like and just more social?
Yes.
Yes, we're talking about these kind of things for this year. I brought up a lot of ideas last year, and not all of them are allowed. Like, I was thinking if we could have some kind of like raffles or of things. The answer is no. And then also I was wondering if we could meet in a place that was a lot less formal sometime, like maybe going to Casa Amigos, and we, as an LPAC, would just buy some like chips and salsa, and then people are in a fun place, they can get whatever else they want, but we could also be, together and united as a group. So our former president attended our last meeting with Rosa, and Rosa's first question is like, what's the problem? Why aren't people coming? What can we do? And all the people who were there We're echoing what I'm saying right now. And we're like, we're always trying something new and seeing if it sticks to the wall. The computers worked. We did get a lot of people. And then also we piggybacked off of a different open house night earlier this year, in that we got the entire NES cafeteria filled. But traditionally, the first meeting is well attended. And then the novelty wears off. But yeah, more informal events would be fun, but we really do need to have those. I want to bring them in for the informational parts too. Like, as the teacher, there's so many things I want them to know that they either might not know, or just to remind them like what an important role they have and what a strong voice they have in their child's education.
How many families would you say are represented currently?
I mean, in the last meeting I went to, there was probably like 5 moms and 1 dad. But sometimes, we've had meetings last year where sometimes not one person showed up besides the people who work in the school. So it could be anywhere.
Is there anything that you think would be attractive? I mean, going somewhere, as you suggested. I mean, there's a number of nonprofits. Dreamland, I'm taking off my hat. I mean,
know.
and sometimes just sort of that new location can lure people in. I know it's hard. It is hard to get families.
Well, not everything, but I think a lot of things I was trying to suggest last year, it was a no, but from the I don't know if the right word is legal, but from like the legal side of things, like we can't offer this to just one group of parents and not offer it to everybody, because it's an exclusive group where the membership really is for English language learners, parents.
Right.
But I mean, I'll keep pushing. I'm okay with it. I was thinking we should have some raffles where when you come to the meeting, each meeting could have something that was going to be raffled off, and the only way to get a chance at even winning something, just come to the meeting. And if you come to the meeting, your name goes in the raffle, and then you could be going home with something from the Dreamland, or an overnight at the water park in Hyannis. Anything. I mean, things that our parents would love. But from what I know, that's not allowed.
Thank you.
I had a few questions which they kind of already answered. And you said your meetings are now 4 times a year, roughly?
Yeah.
And where do you usually meet?
We meet in the CPS cafeteria, and it's necessary because it's the only place we can meet that still has the custodian crew there at that time. So they'll stay there for our meeting.
And I also was thinking, I know you mentioned attendance, how it's a big issue, especially probably around the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Probably in the beginning of March, because I know a lot of families who travel. I wonder if there was a way to send like a reminder. I mean, I know the school policy, it does show that if you miss X amount, but I mean, how many parents do really read the policy, the school handbook? Especially non-English speaking parents. Oh, so I was just thinking in the your LPAC flyer, just like, hey, just a reminder, little disclaimer, like, hey, if your child misses X amount of days, you could get in serious trouble. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I can't say that we could get in serious trouble because it's not exactly true.
Yeah,
But the problem is that our families have families other places, and many of our families' busiest time of the year is the summer. So they need to take off the time that they have free so that they can visit their families and keep maintaining their connections to the cultures they came from. So my husband's Dominican, so I'm in the struggle. If you want to fly at Christmas, or the holiday season, it's the worst. It's so expensive, and I have no flexibility because I'm attached to the school calendar. But for him, he has only flexibility at this time of the year, and many of our families are the exact same way. And so they're thinking, what, am I not going to see my mom this year? Or my child's not going to see their cousins or grandparents for Christmas? And it's just often really hard to get them. I mean, I can tell them that it's dangerous, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be pushing the meter anyway. Also, it's not in our at least at NIS and NES, we're not accustomed to keeping kids back. And so I think when a family does it one year and the kid moves on to the next grade, they're like, oh, it doesn't matter. So there could be feeling a little bit, yeah, more emboldened to go again. I mean, some people have grandparents that pass away every single year at Christmas. But what? That's the time to go.
That one just hit me personally. Every year. How many grandparents do I have?
How many?
But I'm curious, your meetings are in person at the CPS now?
Yes.
I wonder if offering, and I don't even know if this is an option, but a virtual component?
It didn't work. It wasn't popular at COVID times.
Okay.
Because I was still involved in it then, but we could always offer that again, just to see if like maybe it would catch on now.
Yeah, it's just, sometimes people don't want to leave their houses.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for a while it was virtual. We offer pizza and a drink cart, and I bring in like games and puzzles and art supplies for the kids and everything. We get babysitters from the high school to come and like hang out with the kids sometimes. Yeah,
Sounds like you
we'll
guys
just
are doing
keep trying.
everything.
Do you remember the Spanish Club dinners?
Oh, yeah,
I mean, something
Those are
like
fun.
that,
those are fun.
and then you could adjourn to your meeting, but it would attract people.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep. We do have a budget for food at the meetings.
I mean,
We bring it, but
but I think it makes it a little more attractive.
yeah.
And the student deaths, we majored in student deaths a number of years ago,
Yeah.
and there was a way of handling it. And over time, fortunately, we didn't have to deal with it. And we were caught a little bit left-handed with that,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Yeah, and I feel like Dr. Hallett really, she said that in her communications with the parents, but we're talking about a cohort of people where English isn't their first language and maybe everything's not translated in the exact right way, but the message wasn't being received. And luckily I'm in the WhatsApp group of the parents, so I was able to explain it from my end as a teacher. Is it's not healthy to close the school, and it's not fair to close the school for all the kids that maybe that's the only place they have to go that day, or they don't have anybody to talk to. I'm like, Dr. Hallett is improving what happened last year.
Yeah.
And I think that we were really able to get that message across with our meeting with her.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
If I may, through the chair,
What did you say, Beth?
if I may, yes, just wanted to thank Lauren for inviting me. It was a difficult time, and each of the student losses were a little different, and the reaction and the how we handled them was different, and that needed to change. So I was thankful to have the opportunity to speak directly with the parents who were concerned about why there was why things were different. And I think that we now have an excellent policy in place that can be followed with any sort of loss, whether it be student or staff member, so that it's there. It's been approved by you, school committee, and so I'm pleased that we were able to have this meeting and move forward. And I appreciated their feedback too. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Beth. Moving on to committee discussions and votes to be taken. So we have a vote to approve NES, NIS, CPS, and the NHS 2024-25 school improvement plans. Can I have a motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the donation of $1,250 from Gillies Plumbing and Heating to the NHS Student Activities Account for the Spanish Club field trip to Boston.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve a new account in student activities for the CPS News.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the donation from the Sea Grill for $200 to CPS News.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the fundraising check of $1,963.63 from Hayward Photography to NHS.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the fundraising check for $1,407.03 from Hayward Photography to CPS.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the fundraising check for $1,730.29 from Hayward Photography to NIS.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the fundraising check for $2,596.73 from Hayward Photography to NES.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the fundraising check for $243.16 from Educats to NES.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the updates of policy ADF, School Wellness Program.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the mask recommended updates to G policies personnel.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to
Before you continue-
approve,
Before you continue,
sure.
it's probably wise for me to recuse from L through Q, to P, and I'll be back for Q. I was not part of those minutes, so
Yes,
I'll recuse those.
it should be noted. A vote to approve the October 24th, 2024 workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the October 29th, 2024 workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the October 29th, 2024 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve November 4th, 2024 workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve November 25th, 2024 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I was on that one.
Okay. Transfers and invoices.
So
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nora, you're up.
Okay. So the drama club had planned on doing a staged reading this month. However, this has been postponed to spring. The annual Powder Puff football tournament between the junior and senior class was on November 20th, and the seniors won 22-8. The Spanish club recently took a trip up to Boston on November 22nd, which led into the 23rd, where they were able to visit the Museum of Fine Arts and the Boston Public Library. The Accidentals and Naturals, which is the high school select chorus, have a lot of performances coming up. Most recently, they were able to sing the national anthem with the Martha's Vineyard Select Chorus at the Island Cup, which was last Tuesday, and they also sang at the tree lighting last Friday. This Saturday at 3 p.m., they will be performing downtown on the main stage for Stroll, and on December 16th, they have their annual dessert cabaret. And this is a fundraiser that helps raise money for the group, and this will be put towards their trip to New York City, which will be this coming April. Yesterday was the first day for JV and varsity winter sports, which includes boys and girls basketball, swim and dive, boys ice hockey, and indoor track and field. Unfortunately, there is no varsity or JV girls hockey this year due to a lack of signups. And on Tuesday, November 26th, the varsity football team played in the annual Island Cup against the Vineyard at Fenway Park, which they won. There were performances from both the school's select chorus, the cheerleading team, and the pep band. Next Wednesday, December 11th, the high school will have their December chorus and band concert, which will be in the auditorium. And the senior class has been preparing for their annual December Delight fundraiser, which helps pay for all the costs of graduation as well as senior ball. And the date for that event will be December 14th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you, Nora.
Subcommittee work groups. Has anybody been meeting? Laura?
Cape Cod Collaborative, you know 'em. ringer. So we did select the new executive director, and she has accepted. So,
Who is it?
so her name escapes me now. Hope. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
If I may,
Yes.
it's Hope Hanscom.
Thank you, Dr.
Sure.
Hope Hanscom, I believe, actually.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you, Beth.
Agenda
Sure.
for the next meeting, Beth?
Sure. So we hope to invite our Student Success Program Alt Ed folks to share any updates with their program. We will have an overview of our federal grants. I'm hoping to entice the vocational program to come and explain all the great things that are happening in their world. We did have Veritas. We hoped to come today, but that couldn't happen, so we will invite them as well, even though it's not on this agenda. And we do have a small group of community members who are proposing a tennis backboard along with our tennis coaches. So we hope to share that proposal with you for that day. So that's it.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm taking up my puppy on Monday.